In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
Welcome back to another edition of the Daily Memphian's Memphis Grizzlies podcast. This is your host, Grizzlies writer Drew Hill, joined as always by columnist Chris Herrington. We've been busy, Chris. We both had a lot going on, traveling around, doing a lot of stuff. We have had three Grizzlies preseason games since we last did this podcast.
Yep.
We got a lot to talk about and not a ton of time to do it. So let's go ahead and start getting into it. First of all, no Ja, no Jaren. I don't even know if the Ja ankle thing has happened. The ankle announcement has happened since we potted the last time. Doesn't seem to be anything serious. Ja was at practice today getting shots up. He said the ankle is fine. He said Grizzlies fans are tweaking, but he hasn't played. And so therefore you've had three Grizzlies preseason games, all losses, only two of which the other veteran players have played. And not a whole lot of success. So my question to you is, what do we make of these three preseason losses? Like, how do we even analyze these with no Ja and no Jaren so far?
I'm going to table that just briefly to throw a question back at you. We're recording. It's Monday afternoon as we're recording, right? It is Monday. Is that right? Yeah. So I was not at Grizzlies practice today. Anything notable from that? Anyone say anything?
Believe it or not, I was also not at Grizzlies practice today.
Oh, okay. Sorry to do that.
You know what? Let's throw this out there. This was a good opportunity. So obviously we both have a lot going on. Sam Shoemaker is our intern. He covered the game on Saturday for us. He's doing an awesome job. He's a student at the University of Memphis. Sam Shoemaker, you can follow him. Make sure you're following him because he is going to do some Grizzlies stuff for us at least through November. At S_Shoemaker52. Go follow him. You're going to get some Grizzlies stuff from him this year. He's been at a few of the games already. But I wasn't able to make it because I'm on College Game Day watch today, Chris. As you know, I do a little bit more than Grizzlies now, so I'm on College Game Day watch today. Yeah.
I don't think anything particularly notable came out of practice. Otherwise, I would have known that already. I don't make too much of the preseason stuff specifically. To the point, the team has a lot of role players and prospects built around two hubs, maybe three hubs, depending on what you think Zach Edey's going to do in year two. And none of those hubs have been in the games. At least two of them, and Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson, we expect to be in the games very soon. We don't know opening night. That is not determined on either one, although they have not been rolled out for opening night, despite what I keep reading and hearing nationally. I even read something today. Ja Morant's out to start the season. I don't know that to be true.
I don't know why that keeps coming up.
Yeah, that might be true, but it's not. That determination has not been made by anyone. So
I don't think that's going to be true.
Yeah.
On either of them, by the way. I think they're both going to play on opening night. That's just a guess right now. That's not factual reporting. But if I'm guessing they're playing.
So unless something new happens, those guys are both going to be back either on opening night or very soon thereafter. Seems to be the case. And this team will look a lot different when those two are on the floor. Now, you're going to have to wait a little while on Zach Edey. And so, what we've seen in preseason is not what we're going to see in the regular season. I do have some concerns about the absences slowing down the process and making the beginning of the regular season something more like extended preseason, and the team therefore not getting off to taking longer for the team to sort of find its stride, even though they have a fairly favorable early schedule. I do have some concerns about that, but I don't want to read too much into the preseason itself. We can get into details and talk about specific players and what have you, but I think the team is clearly still trying to find its way and find its rhythm and find its style of play and find a lot of that stuff. And it's hard to do that in three preseason games, period, with a new coach and new players. But it's harder to do that when your main guys aren't playing.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with what you said. And there's a few things that have struck me that have kind of stuck in my mind. One's an individual player, one's just a thought, and one is kind of exactly what you just said, that this feels like it's slowing down the process. But there's a lot of work to do, clearly. Right? It is not smooth offensively. I one thing that I just can't get out of my mind is this idea that we heard Isla say towards the end of last season, like you play more players because you can play at a higher intensity, and you if you want to be different, yield different results, then you have to try different things in the NBA, and that they were going to play more bodies and that they were going to play more intense than the opponent. That's already a hard thing to do, but it logically makes sense. I'm wondering
Yeah.
now if it logically makes sense after watching this preseason and wondering if the Grizzlies have enough straight up, like, just dudes to do that. So that's one thing that I've thought about, I think, a few different times. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that in particular.
Well, I think that's going to happen to start the season. The question is whether that continues, and that depends on how. Essentially, it seems to, based on the way Islo has spoken, may depend on the level of success with it. But one of the things about the start to the season, even if Morant and Jackson are a go for opening night, if they're a go for opening night, having missed the entire preseason, there's going to be sort of a sensitivity about the ramp up and the workload for them. No matter who was the head coach, that would be the case, right? And that would lead into the idea of having a rotation that would look more like the Grizzlies played last season. Last season, it was. I remember asking Taylor Jenkins about this like 3 games into the season, because there were environmental factors that would lead the team to lower minutes based on, same thing. It's sort of deja vu. Morant missed most of preseason last year with an ankle injury. Jaren Jackson missed all of preseason with a hamstring injury. And going into the season, there was reason to like take it easy on those guys because of the injury stuff. And I remember asking Taylor Jenkins, is this a response to the injury stuff, or is it strategy? And he just flat out said it's strategy. So we're going to have deja vu all over again with this, where they're going to be doing that. And it's going to be strategy, I think, but it's also going to be overlapping with the return from injury.
So that's interesting, and we'll see where they go. Because he says he's a pragmatist, right? Like,
Right.
everything that is talked about is about solutions. Solutions is a term you're going to hear an awful lot this year. I don't know at what point, like, your idea, you have to introduce the pragmatism because your idea is not working. Like, I'm not saying it's not going to work, because maybe it will work. Maybe it'll work beautifully. But I'm just interested to see how he operates through the first 10 games, right? If it doesn't go well, what changes are on the way? If it goes great, are they going to just stick with it? Are they going to be more inclined to stick with it for longer? Like, I think there are. Can they stick with their whatever their basketball strategy ends up looking like when Zach Edey returns? Like, I think there's a lot of like different pieces here, and we're not getting a full taste of it in the preseason.
Well, one part of that is when you think about a deep rotation. If you trim a deep rotation, you trim from the bottom, right? You don't trim from the top. And is there going to be a tension between development and immediate success with some of the players who might be towards the back end of that rotation, like a Gigi Jackson and a Cedric Coward in particular, right? Those are players you expect more from down the line, maybe than you will opening night. And so is there, if they're not playing well, is there a tension there in terms of about their playing time? And that could relate depending on how deep that they go. I mean, in some of these preseason games, we've seen, 12 guys in the first quarter and what seems like it could be even a regular rotation, and that includes Vince Williams, it includes a whatever. Well, John Morant and Jaren Jackson are back. There's already some cutting that's gonna happen from that point. But younger guys like a Gigi Jackson, like a Cedric Howard, I think they're probably in the opening night rotation, even with John Jaren back. And then, how well do they play? And is there a tension between giving them minutes versus, getting your better players on the floor in terms of winning?
That's a battle all season long, especially
Right.
with a guy like Cedric Coward. Is like, how do you carve time for him to play? Because you did use the number 11 pick on him, right? Like, you've got to develop him somehow. And I've talked to some people who are just Grizzlies fans about Cedric, and I think preaching patience is important there.
Right.
I will say there is a little bit of concern just that it's now been 3 games and that here's the thing that I think is more concerning than like the performance on the court. He's 22 years old and he never really played high level college basketball, right?
Right.
And to me, that's more concerning than what I've seen on the court. Like, because it might all click in 20 games, 30 games. It may take a season. Like, the physical tools are there. I think if he's not a good player, it's just because he was never a good player, not because, like, we're going to judge him based on off his first 3 games in in the preseason of his rookie year. It's just, I don't know. I think what I'm saying is I'm not ruling out the idea that maybe someone who will say that they look smart and they saw it from the beginning and we were saying don't panic and then it ended up bad. Like that happens all the time. But we can't say that we can't say that a player is bad after 3 preseason games. Like he hasn't even been very aggressive. I think when he has been more aggressive, he's looked a lot better.
I think the Cedric Coward thing, obviously there's an eye of beholder situation there. And I suspect how you feel about Cedric Coward depended on where you started before he stepped on the floor and what your expectations were before he stepped on the floor. If you had expectations because of his draft position that this was going to be an immediate high production player, I think you would be disappointed right now. If your expectation was, I want to see the signs of what can be down the line, which is sort of more where I was, I think, I feel pretty good about it, honestly, from what I've seen. And it's interesting to me how similar his game 2 and game 3 was for him, where he's kind of invisible other than missing 3-pointers for 3 quarters. And then like he just sort of erupts in the 4th quarter. And they're different. I mean, that could just be happenstance. He even said himself, I think after the 3rd game, like, it's not like I think I'm like a 4th quarter player or whatever. It just sort of, he suggested it was just sort of random, which to some degree it probably is. But there's a couple other things you could point to with that. One glass half full, one glass half empty. The half empty would be, well, like the better players for the other team are not on the floor anymore, probably in these games. Like there's that aspect to it. The other thing would be, I do think there's been, and this is what Isolo basically alluded to after the 2nd game. I think in both cases, there's been a little bit of like just loosening up and letting go and playing more free in those situations and being more aggressive and not being, okay, the offense, I'm supposed to be here and now I have to be here and let me space out here. There's just been a little bit more playground to those 4th quarters. And what you've seen is the talent pop a little bit in those situations. Is he a great off the dribble creator right now? No, I think just much like with Jaren Jackson Jr., this is going to be a multi-year story with him developing his handle to be a one-on-one scorer. But 1 or 2 dribbles to get to a spot and like get a shot, get in the lane and get a shot up because of his just pure athleticism and feel. Like he's been doing that when he's cut loose. The idea that he can take a bump from an NBA player and finish the shot and draw the foul, like we've seen that. The jostling for post position, like we've seen that. The getting higher than other dudes to grab a rebound. I'm real impressed with the functional athleticism he has, and I'm impressed with him just his personality, composure, like when you talk to him. And I put a lot into those 2 things as a long-term proposition, right? And I'm not really concerned about the 3-point shooting. He's shooting 7% from 3. I will guarantee you he will not be a career 7% NBA 3-point shooter. Now, I don't know whether he'll be 40 or 31, and it's a big difference between those 2 numbers. But he shot 39% from 3 on like 200 college attempts. He shot 80-something% from the line. He shooting 80-something% from the line in these 3 games. The touch is there. I think that's a matter of time. I feel real good about him, but I think, they're KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Jalen Wells, you're set on the wing if those guys are healthy. So I think it's a bring him along slowly. But I think the glimmers of talent and what could be, I mean, those glimmers are there.
Yeah, it's interesting to try to figure out the space for some of these guys that we've already talked about. And Cedric, I'm only bringing this up because Cedric is definitely one of them. You talk about bringing them along slowly. I mean, just think about the backcourt and who's played well so far and like who's 100% in the rotation when the rotation is healthy. It's like, and we've heard another thing we've heard a lot of Islo talk about is point guard and point guard backcourt combinations with double ball handling, like Scotty and Ty. Ja and Scotty, and we haven't seen him, right? And I expect we are going to see a lot of that. So you got those 3 guys. And then you got Jalen Wells, who's having a great preseason. Looks awesome in preseason. Yeah. You have Caldwell Pope, who looks great in the preseason.
MVP of the preseason, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
Seriously. I mean, Magic fans are sick. I don't know if you've been on the internet. Magic fans are throwing a fit.
Right.
But no, like, already that's pretty crowded in the backcourt, no? And then now you got to, and who knows if Adama if the front court ever gets healthy, which we can't ever expect everybody to be healthy, that's the one thing we constantly do is like, well, when they have everybody, well, they're never going
Right.
to have everybody. They're never. It's just
That's right.
it's never
The
going to
number
happen.
the number of games out of 82 games, if you let's just not say 1 through 15. Let's say like 1 through 10, 1 through 11, right? The most likely guys. How many games at 82 will the top 10 guys all be available? If it's more than 25, that'd be great. Honestly, it just doesn't really happen that way.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. So, but like, even with that mix of backcourt players that we already named, that doesn't include a guy like John Conchar, who seems to like what you're going to get from him, right? At this
Right.
point, and he
Right.
kind of fills a need you might have or he plays a position you have a need for because he rebounds. Like I I do wonder how they're going to squeeze in Coward. Like it's probably going to be pretty nuanced, and I don't know the answer to it. So when you include him, John, like you do have a pretty crowded backcourt. I imagine how they're going to get, you know, Coward in the game is going to have to be pretty nuanced because you do want to see him develop. And then, like, what do you do with Vince? Like, somebody's got to be out of the rotation given how it sets up right now.
If you assume 10, and it may not be 10, Taylor Jenkins played 11 to start last season. Isla has played 12 in some of these preseason games in a normal rotation. So it might be 11 or 12, but let's just say it's 10. Let's say John, Jaron are available, right? So I think at that stage, if that's the case, we know it's going to be John Morant. We think we know. It's going to be John Morant, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Jalen Wells, Jaron Jackson, Jock Landale. That seems likely, right? We know Santi will be the first big off the bench, the main big, the third big. We know Ty Jerome is going to be the main guard. So that gets you to 7. We don't know what's going on exactly with the Scottie Pippen, the toe thing, but I think if he's healthy, we're assuming he's in the rotation too. So now you're up to 8. And so if it's only 2 more, you're sort of looking at this interesting thing where I think Vince is not in the mix if you're going to 10 at that point. But if you're going to 10, you're looking at Cedric Coward, you're looking at Gigi Jackson as these young, promising players. You're looking at John Conchar, who's reliable and gets boards, and you're looking at PJ Hall. He's on a 2-way or Max Prosper, but let's take PJ Hall. He's on a 2-way, but you need a big, right? And so to me, that's the interesting question. If you're only picking 2 of those 4, who are you picking? I'll pose that to you. Let's say that's the case. That your 10-man rotation, 8 are set. You got 2 spots open. Maybe you'll go wild card, but I assume we're talking about those 4 players, right? Cedric Coward, Gigi Jackson, John Conchar, PJ Hall. Who's filling out your 10-man rotation?
I think PJ Hall has to play because of his skill set.
Right.
Needed. So I think he has to be one of them. And I think I'm going Cedric.
I think that is probably also the coaching staff's answer. I think you may need to get a clipboard because I think you're probably in line with the coaching staff, I would guess. I would say I am playing Cedric Howard. And then that 10th spot, I'm looking at the matchup. And if I feel like I can get away with it.
Well, okay, that's cheating. You're cheating now, though. You can't say I'm going to look at the matchup.
Okay,
that's cheating.
Fine. I'm going to try to get away with it. I'm playing Conchar right now.
All right, that's fine. I have no problem. Insane that neither of us said GG, but it is what it is.
I think they're going to go 11, and then GG would be my 11.
I was texting with somebody during the game. We were talking about just the Grizzlies roster, because it actually started with like the John Conchar thing. It was like, well, as like a 10 or 11th guy, he's a pretty credible 10 or 11th guy. He's a good 10 or 11th guy in the league. Now, he's not good enough to be like a major part of your rotation and like you feel good about it. But as a 10 or 11th guy, he's perfectly fine for that role. How many credible NBA rotation players, like trustworthy in a normal NBA game, trustworthy being the key word there, like credible, solid NBA player, rotation players do the Grizzlies have?
I mean,
in total, don't include guys that are healthy, just in total. How many do they have on the roster? I came up with 9.
I mean, we're including the whole 15-man roster, or no? We're not including
the whole 15-man roster. I'm including Brandon Clark.
Oh, I think it could be more than that. I'm going to start subtracting, and so it's not Cam Spencer. It's not. You can't say right. It's not Gigi Jackson right now.
Not yet. No.
As much as I would like to believe it, it's not Vince Williams right now.
Not yet.
Um, and then you get into like you're in a debatable situation. It's but you can't say it's Coward yet, but I think it could be very
No,
quickly. But it's not Coward yet.
not yet. Yeah.
And then like Landau, he's mostly been more of a third string kind of guy, but like as a 10th man backup center, I think that's reasonable. So
That's the one that I think is like the teetering edge. These are the guys I have, okay? You ready?
yeah.
When healthy, credible, trustworthy NBA rotation player. Ja, obviously. Jaren, obviously. Wells, Clark, Edie, KCP, Jerome, Santi, Aldama, and Scotty. And that's it.
Okay, I mean that's nine. I don't think that's
Nine.
a small number, honestly. I think you
I
could
don't
go
think
around the
so either.
league.
But I'm wondering how many of those players are going to be healthy on a given night and
Yeah,
how you
I,
feel going
I
into
think
games.
I think your hope is that one or two of those other guys quickly graduates into that class this season, right? This is year three for Gigi Jackson. I know he's young, youngest guy on the team. It is year three. And I think Coward, again, we're not talking about graduated into quality starter. We're talking about graduated into like reasonable ninth, 10th man. That's a different, line. And I think, you didn't put Conchar on that list, but like, I don't know that Conchar shouldn't be on that list. Again, as a ninth, 10th man in a real NBA rotation, I actually think that's fine. I think the depth is pretty good if they're healthy. I mean, obviously health is sort of a question. Um,
I wonder how that compares to like the good teams in the league. I haven't really been through them all, but
I think it's not. I don't think it's that bad. I think there are
yeah.
plenty of teams that are. I questioned that. Like a lot of people have the Lakers as the third most likely team to get out of the West, and like I
Well,
don't
obviously
know.
the Thunder are going to be ridiculous at this game, which is who you go
Right?
to first. So that
Yeah.
you got to throw them out. But like I'd be very curious to see how that compares to like if you went up and down Denver's roster and really thought about, you know.
But I think every team, even the good teams, have marginal guys or guys they're hoping will graduate into more at the back end of their roster. I think that's Denver. That's been notable about Denver for the last few years. They get all these young guys they're hoping will become something. They got a whole group of Vince Williams and Gigi Jacksons over there, right? We don't watch them every night, so we don't talk about Jalen Pickett and Peyton Watson and Julian Strother and like these theoretical properties. I think every team has those.
All right, let's move on. But first, let's take a break for a message from our sponsor.
Want to make a big impact without getting lost in a big system? Join Youth Villages to be a force for families while becoming part of one. Help make positive changes on a national scale, one community at a time. It takes a family to transform lives. Start with yours. Apply now at youthvillages.org/careers.
Does anything about like it's so hard with no John Jaren, but
Yeah.
like, does the offense concern you at all? Like, can you be worried about, as you said, you're worried about them picking it up more so than like what it actually is. I feel like.
The thing about the offense to me at this stage is I know Islo has this reputation of record-setting offenses in Europe and an innovator, but he was an innovator off of basic stuff, right? It was that he did interesting things with out of basic things, right? It's screen oriented, and that's basic basketball. The offensive system stuff was notable at this point last season because it was legitimately novel. Like it did not look like other NBA offenses. And so right now they're trying to do a better version to some degree of, I mean, we'll learn more about, we talked some last year about stampede cuts and like, well, there'll be new lingo and that's the stuff, some of the stuff they're trying to do here. We've seen some of that in some of these preseason games. We'll talk about pace. We'll talk about whatever. I think the system stuff is not as transparently novel as it was a year ago. And B, it's not that far along in terms of what they want it to ultimately look like. The thing is, it seems so rooted in the idea of maximizing Ja Morant and Zach Edey, and they're just not there.
I know. That's the problem. It's the problem all around. I will say one thing that makes me nervous or just like one thing I wonder is like this whole thing about pace and we're going to play fast, fast, fast. And I get it. And I understand the math behind it, like, wanting to maximize your total number of possessions over the course of a game. But I, the Grizzlies transition defense struggled quite a bit towards the
Right.
end of last season. And that's something that you can get yourself in trouble with, I think, if you are shooting too quickly. And it's why at training camp, like wrote that story about tagging up or whatever, because like that was Isolo's transition defensive tactic in Europe that he used all the time, and the Grizzlies did some of it last year. And if you're not familiar, it's basically like somebody shoots a three on offense for the Grizzlies, then every player is going to go for the rebound, but stay on the high side and kind of like push the opposing team under the basket. Well, it's people think it's like a rebounding technique, but it's really just like, hey, let's go stand really close to the other player and see if we can, slow him down from getting in transition. And I know I'm getting in the weeds here but there's a reason. Like last year, they tried some of that and they just got beat down the court over and over again. And I didn't see a lot of the Atlanta game, but I will say, especially in the Detroit game, it felt like that was happening all over again. And I wonder if like the speed is going to have major drawbacks to it too that we don't really consider.
Maybe and I hate to be a broken record, but it's kind of thing where like I'm reluctant to make too much out of these results, but also this is all we have,
Right. So what do you do?
Going right now. One thing I don't really have. I'm sort of wait and see on what you're talking about. One thing I'll note, and this is something you asked this question. I can't remember whether it was after. I think it was after the first game, the Detroit game. You asked about this in a post game with Islo about the volume of threes they took relative to like their total shots, right? And Islo had a response about that's probably not the best percentage, and we're not touching paint, and you don't have John Morant, one of the best paint touching guards. That is something I've noted in these three games. They're taking a lot of threes. But they're not making many. And so the basketball has been lots of missed 3-point shots, which is like the worst basketball to watch, is just a lot of missed 3-point shots. As of this morning, again, everyone's played 2 or 3 preseason games. It's not much to go on. But they're 45 3-point attempts a game, which is top 5, in terms of raw volume. And part of that is their pace. But of the preseason teams, and I'm just looking at the NBA teams, I'm throwing out the international teams that have played in these games. And they're making 31%, which is, bottom 10. And so when you're taking 45 threes a game, you're shooting 31%, like the elementary school student who's good at math can do the math and determine that equals lots of missed 3-point shots. And like, that's not pleasant or effective basketball. Lots of missed 3-point shots. So hopefully, that'll change.
It's also like kind of one of the biggest questions coming into the year was, do the Grizzlies have enough shooting?
Yeah, it is.
And it's not been very encouraging. And like Islo's right. Like they don't have paint touches, but at the same time, like the guys that are shooting threes right now are going to be the guys that are shooting threes in the games.
Yeah. And some will come up, some will come down. There's always your sort of regression to the mean, right? So right. It's not just the bad shooters will get better. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope will not shoot 67% from three this season.
He's been awesome. So is Jalen Wells, by the way.
But like Cedric Coward, I don't know if he's going to have a good 3-point shooting season. But I know this: if by mid-season he is shooting 7% from 3, he won't be taking 5 of them a game. Right? Like one thing or the other will change. He's like 1 of 16 or whatever, and he won't be 1 of 16. That won't be the normal pace for him through 3 games when the regular season is going.
I feel like we're getting a very good insight into just our personalities, Chris, because I feel like I'm just way less patient than you. Look at me, all worried about things this early in the preseason. I'm a little high strung, man. Like I'll admit it. Like I don't know. The 3 games weren't exactly enjoyable. They were rough watches at the very least.
Let me talk you down with a few things from last preseason. Last preseason, the Cleveland Cavaliers were winless in preseason. Didn't win a single game in preseason, and they had the second best record in the league, 62 or whatever wins it was last season. The Denver Nuggets, who took the Thunder to 7 games in the second round of the playoffs, went 1-4 in preseason last year. The Jazz, the Utah Jazz, who were one of the worst teams in the NBA last season, had the second best true shooting percentage in preseason. They were ripping nets.
Well, yeah.
Preseason,
I think I remember watching the Utah Jazz, and I was like, oh, so they're just playing all their starters.
Right.
Heavy minutes every game.
Well, that brings up another point. Not only is preseason not all that indicative of what's going to happen, there are some times where you can find things there. I'm not saying it's meaningless. But like it's not necessarily indicative of what's going to happen in regular season basketball. It's even less so when the guys playing in preseason aren't the guys. Now the Grizzlies are generally playing the guys who will play. They have not been giving heavy minutes to like, Tyler Burton and Braxton Key. Those guys have played, but they're not playing those every minute. They're mostly playing guys who matter, but they're not playing the guys who matter most because those guys have not been available.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I think it's fair to say rough watch, right?
No,
Doesn't matter. Doesn't like rough watch doesn't matter. Doesn't count. Does not count. Wrote that five times the other day.
Like I said,
rough watch
45 3-point attempts a game times 31% shooting is not basketball I want to be watching. That's for sure.
Doesn't count. Rough watch. I mean, that's just hopefully it gets a lot better. You know who makes rough watches a lot easier to watch? The guy that can do stuff on the basketball court that no one else in the world can do. That guy. He's pretty good at making things exciting. I don't know if you've noticed that. But I expect that these last two preseason games are going to be a whole lot of the same, though. Like, I don't have my hopes up that we're going to get some really entertaining preseason game. Or do you?
I don't. I'm slightly curious. I assume this will not happen.
If Morant's going to play?
Well, I'm slightly curious about the last preseason game. If they think Morant and or Jackson are good for the opening night, do you give them just some cardio minutes? I'm guessing no. I'm guessing the answer to that is no. But until the game comes and goes, I wonder about that a little bit.
You said a light schedule, and it's maybe light, but it's only light for like a week.
Yeah, it's home heavy.
It's not light anymore.
It's home heavy in the first three games. I'm trying to remember. It's New Orleans,
Pelicans,
Miami,
Pacers.
Yeah, I mean, these are not teams anyone is projecting to be, top four seeds in the conference. Exactly, right? And you're going to get the Heat before Tyler Herro's out. You get the Heat without Herro. Obviously, the Pacers have, and T.J. McConnell's will be out to start the season for the Pacers, who are also without, Tyrese Halliburton. Now, you are going to get New Orleans more than likely before the Zion injuries happen. Zion's good to go, so you may get the best Zion you see this season might be in Memphis on opening night, unfortunately. And if that opening night is without Jaren Jackson Jr., that could be a big problem.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, we talked about it this morning on Jeff Calkins' show when I was filling in. Like, none of these teams in the West have no talent besides Utah, right? Like, and even Utah's got one All-Star player,
Yeah.
So I just think you gotta you gotta be on track by the time you play the Suns on the 29th. You gotta beat the Suns. Do yourself a favor, Grizzlies, and beat the Suns. It's all about the Memphis Grizzlies, and it's about cheering against the Phoenix Suns this year, if you are a Grizzlies fan or a fan of the draft. So I think if you're back Halloween, just look a little bit more spooky if you're Memphis than you do right now through these first couple games, because it's been not that good. I think that Ja Morant does a lot of striking fear into the opponents, and that's all they need to get back on track. Anything else? Anything else?
No, I think we've covered the ground. And, to me, the Coward stuff has been interesting in preseason. I encourage people not to get too high or too low on that, but I think he's been the most interesting player to watch in preseason. And then we'll just, see how it shapes up in the days ahead.
Life has more than basketball. We saw one battle after another, both of us. I thought it was good. You had a lot of thoughts. We talked about it all the way back from training.
Yeah. I have many thoughts. I have now seen it twice. I have lots of thoughts.
You saw it a second time? Oh, nice.
I did. I saw it a second time.
Better the second time?
Yeah, a lot better the second time for me, especially the middle section. Not to get into too much detail, but Benicio del Toro as Sensei Sergio is maybe my favorite movie character in the history of movies, at least for right now. Recency bias talking.
Really? Wow. Good character,
fan.
though. Good character.
Yes. Thank you, Sensei. I would like to say, just to say Sergio. One last gratuitous basketball note as we move out. Go check out stuff we've written. I've been writing lots of preseason preview stuff, different parts of the roster, and looked out over the NBA, whole NBA, which we'll talk about on the pod at some point too. But I've done those predictions. You had a really nice piece on Cedric Coward and his grandfather, among other things you've written. But you had a really nice piece on Cedric Coward and his grandfather, who was sitting courtside before one of the games recently.
Yeah, go read that. I will have some stuff on PJ Hall pretty soon. So if you're a PJ Hall fan or wanting to know more about PJ Hall, be on the lookout for that. Like Chris said, go read all his stuff. He's got lots of stuff. I guess we got to do the predictions pod next week, don't we?
We may need to discuss off air timing because the time is running out and we got at least 2 pods I think we need to do before opening night. So we may need to discuss.
We got a lot of stuff going on, man. And game day. We don't know if we're going to get college game day or not, but I'll leave a nugget if you're a Tigers fan. I've been on the phone with people all day trying to figure out what's going on with this Tigers football college game day situation. Sounds like ESPN's been in contact, but I don't know if it's going to happen. I think people are less optimistic today than they were a day ago. But we'll see what happens. College football. There you go. If you're a Tigers fan and you're listening to this, now you know what I know. So, all right. Well, we'll be back next week, maybe multiple times. We got a lot of stuff to cover. But thanks for listening. For Drew and for Chris, we're out of here.